I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today we're going to be talking about Star Trek because I am a fucking nerd. Some news today. They've, for some reason, decided to reboot the Star Trek universe. They've decided to use the Star Trek Discovery writer Kalinda Vazquez. So I'll talk about that because I'm kind of a Star Trek fan. I'm a little bit of a fake Star Trek fan, to be honest, because I seem to like all the Star Treks that Star Trek fans seem to despise. So I love the original show, but I haven't really seen that since I was a child. I'm sorry. I'm not like one of those like Star Trek fans that can go, yeah, you know, in Star Trek episode 5, Bones really, you know, I can't do all of that kind of stuff. Like use the dilithium crystals to heal a Xenobot or whatever. You know, I can't do all of that stuff. But I did really, really dig, my generation Star Trek, which was Star Trek Voyager. And I did really, really dig the Star Trek film reboot. Like, everyone hates J.J. Abrams. And to be fair, I hate what he did on Superman Flyby. But I do like some of J.J. Abrams' movies. I don't like that he's trying to reboot like a Superman in the way that he's trying to reboot it. But we'll see how that goes. And I didn't like his script for Superman. But all in all, I'm J.J. Abrams. I don't watch Star Wars. You're either a Star Wars guy or a Star Trek guy. You're a Beatles guy. You're an Elvis guy. I'm an Elvis Star Trek fan, which doesn't make sense. So I'm Star Trek, right, as opposed to Star Wars. So it's not going to help my channel because Star Wars is infinitely more popular. But I wanted to talk about this because, I just complex feelings towards Star Trek Discovery. So I wanted to talk about it. And I wanted to talk about why I think, they're going back once again, it seems, to the original cast. So Star Trek, the original cast of the Enterprise, essentially, with Captain Kirk. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I wanted to talk about my feelings towards Kalinda Vazquez, who's been doing Star Trek Discovery. Nikita and Fear the Walking Dead. Okay, that's interesting. I did not know that. So, let me go through this article first of all. So, Paramount Pictures has decided to switch with the Star Trek franchise on the big screen. Deadline reports that the studio has hired Kalinda Vazquez, Star Trek Discovery, Nikita, Fear the Walking Dead to pen the script for the new Star Trek movie with J.J. Abrams' bad reboot producing. Wow, J.J. Abrams is in on this as well. Abrams directed the 2009 reboot and its sequel, Star Trek Into the Darkness. Both films I liked. I have to say, again, a lot of people have watched Star Trek The Wrath of Khan and it pisses them off for some reason, Star Trek Into the Darkness, because apparently it follows a lot of the story beats of The Wrath of Khan. But I can't really watch The Wrath of Khan seriously. I mean, it's a really hard film for me to watch in terms of the acting style, the cinematography, all of it, basically, the CGI of the era. It's just it's a really tough watch for somebody with more modern eyes. So I kind of appreciated that they made a new Star Trek into the, an update of this movie so that I could watch it with a new lens. Now, maybe the new movie is the old movie is vastly superior in terms of its intellectual merits and the performance of Khan and all of these kind of things. But for what it was, I enjoyed the movie. I think if you just pretend it isn't a reboot of a classic and it's just a movie in and of itself, I don't think it was a horrible movie. It certainly wasn't as good as the first one. I did enjoy the first one a lot more. I thought that was really, really good. And in fact, the only bits of the first one I didn't like is where they tried to reconnect it with the old Star Trek and brought in Spock, the old Spock, and all of the timelines conflicting and all of that kind of stuff. If it didn't have that and it was just a purely new reboot of the old cast, I thought it did really well. And like the casting was really good on recasting William Shatner. The way they recasted Spock as because basically my favorite captain of all time is James T. Kirk, and I think the Star Trek reboot did a really good job of how they casted and how they gave more prominence to characters that didn't really get that much prominence in the old TV show. So I kind of like that. See if we can get them up. Yeah, so Chris Pine, I thought, did a great job as James T. Kirk, and I always liked William Shatner as James T. Kirk. That was always my favorite character in Star Trek, because he was kind of like the John Wayne, character of Star Trek, but in space. And I love the way he just would bang any girl from any planet. That was amazing, because so would I. But they gave everyone, in the cast, so they gave Chekhov and Leonard McCoy, just the casting across the board. Carl Urban as Leonard McCoy was amazing. Zachary Quinto was quite good as Spock, but I think Chris Pine kind of stole the show there as James T. Kirk. I know that it was really, I think, supposed to be more a vehicle for Zachary Quinto, because Spock has always been like everyone's favorite character, right? But I just think that Chris Pine really stole the show in that in the Star Trek movies, and it goes to show because he's had like such a big career out of it. Pavel, Anton Chekhov. I loved John Cho as Solo. So these characters really didn't get that much shine, in the original series at all. And Zoe Saldana as Uhura. I think the original Uhura was actually hotter, but nonetheless, Michelle Nichols, but they were both excellent in the role. I just wish Nichelle had more storylines in the original show, because I always liked her, but she never really got to do much in the original show. But anyway, that's beside the point. But I like the reboot, so I was kind of like, this is, I thought that universe and them doing that style of Star Trek was always a good idea. But this takes me to what this news is saying now. So it goes on to say, before Justin Lin took the helm in 2016 Star Trek Beyond, which I thought also was very, very good. It wasn't, again, it wasn't as good as the first one. I think they stayed consistently where none of the films just fell off a cliff. Now, I don't know what happened with J.J. Abrams on Star Wars. I understand that he's really a kind of targeted man, and he's hated, and people go back to the Star Trek and say he ruined Star Trek as well. I don't know that is true, that he ruined Star Trek at all. I thought Star Trek Beyond was a very decent movie. So it's assumed Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Zoe Saldana, and the rest of the Kelvin timeline crew will not be back for this original project, but that's not yet confirmed. Okay, so if they are going to go with the original cast, I don't care if they recast, really. I'm not attached to any of the actors in those roles. But quite honestly, I really think that the way forward with the Star Trek franchise is to branch off and reboot. Either do a whole new crew, which would be interesting, a whole new film crew. But if they want some kind of link back to the past, why not like start rebooting all of the Star Trek franchises? Because there are big fans of Star Trek, New Generation. There are big fans of Star Trek DS9 and Voyager. So to me, I think they've got their version of the MCU that they can kind of try and work with, where they branch off and do reboots with younger, prettier actors. Basically, that was the model of the original Star Trek reboot, where you get younger, prettier, sexier, young, good actors playing the roles of, Captain Janeway and Captain Sisko and Captain Picard. Get all of that, and then you can still have cameos because you'll still be in the Kelvin timeline, right? So it will all be in the timeline of the original Star Trek movie. But I'm so glad I'm not doing. By the way, I'm doing a video about something something nerdy I'm passionate about. Because like, shout out to Ray Fisher, bro. But anyway, yeah. So to me, that would make sense. Then you can get an MCU-like universe, because there were really cool characters in those original Star Trek shows. In the Star Trek, DS9. I'd love to see a young Sisko. Like how did the origin story of DS9, with a younger Sisko, and Dax was always cool. That whole mythology around Dax, and who was the guy who could transform into Julian Bashar, as well as Alexander Siddig, who was like basically genetically advanced. That would be cool. You had Worf in there. And you had there was a really cool character who could morph in. Oh, Odo, right? Rene Auberjonois. Odo was like their attempt, I think, at trying to establish the Spock character. The weird alien who has like a quirky thing that he can do, right? But I don't think that he was as successful. But again, I liked him, and I think that would be a really good, way to, you could to connect these kind of universes, right? Like you do maybe in the Kelvin timeline, people like Sisko are along, like they're at the same time as as Captain Kirk, and so it's messed up the timeline. So all Star Trek Voyager, Star Trek Next Generation, and Star Trek DS9 was all happening at the same time as the original Star Trek series. But I'll go into more of that later, because I'm getting distracted, because there's something I want to say about this new Star Trek reboot. So it also sounds like the separate Trek movies that were being worked on by Quentin Tarantino and Noah Hawley are now well and truly dead in the water. We recently learned that Vazquez is set to team with Game of Thrones author George R.R. Martin for a HBO series adaptation of Roger Zelazny's sci-fi novel Romance. Her other TV credits include Marvel's Runaways, which is good, Once Upon a Time, which is I don't know about, Human Target, and Prison Break. And she recently adapted Brian K. Vaughan graphic novel Barrier, Legendary Television. So those sound like good credits. So I was going to go off a bit, because I am not a big fan of what happened with the Star Trek Discovery. Now, I'm not a hater. Like the big criticisms online about Star Trek Discovery are about Michael Burnham. Everyone hates Michael Burnham, and I don't. Look, Michael Burnham is one of those characters where I don't mind. I don't think she's the problem. I think Sonequay, Martin Green, I think you'd have to be lying to yourself if you were to say that she was a bad actress, that she didn't have a lot of charisma, and that she didn't do a good job in the role. She does do a good job in the role. The character is written in a way that does a disservice to her. But a lot of the thing is, oh, she's too powerful, she's too OP, she's a Mary Sue, all of this kind of stuff. And I don't even vibe with that so much. Because when a man is OP, like what captain of a starship hasn't been slightly OP? Right, they always can do a bunch of stuff, or Spock has been quite OP, or maybe she is a little bit OP. But like the point is that men don't get this flack when they're like really, really powerful characters. So the first season of Star Trek Discovery actually was quite good, and it was quite an exciting reboot. And I love what they did with the Klingons. I love, like they changed the aesthetic of Star Trek to make it a little bit different from what we've seen before. They played around with Mirror Universe, which was exciting. But then it got taken over by the message. As soon as season 2, season 3 started, it started getting, I could say genuinely, yes, there were messages, there were agendas, definitely as part of Star Trek Discovery season 1. But by Star Trek Discovery season 2 and 3, the agenda had taken over. It was agenda above story. And it hurt the show, and that's where I think it started to fail. There were still, interesting episodes, specifically the ones based on Saru's race, which was played by Doug Jones. They were excellent episodes when they were based on his race. Michelle Yeoh was really good as Captain Philippus, I think. And episodes surrounding her were always interesting, but the rest of the show was a muddle. I don't like the fact that it wasn't centered on a captain. Michael Burnham could have been the first, the first. What do they call them again? Bloody hell! It's the first. What, like in Star Trek lore? What is Nimoy known as? I'm getting annoyed now. They're basically the second in lead, and I think Michael Burnham could have been an interesting second in lead, but you need a strong captain at the center of the show, and them flipping around captains, I wasn't for that. They then brought who was it to be the captain of the ship? It was the original captain they brought back, and he was the original captain before before James T. Kirk took over the Enterprise in the original show. There was one captain, I think his name was Captain Pike, for the he was for the first episode. He was the captain, and he was really boring then, and he's really boring now. And I hope, we never have to see him again. It's like this good old boy captain, and he's boring, essentially. So he took over as captain, and finally they made Michael captain, and it was like, okay, now we can go with this. We've got a strong captain. Maybe they should have just made Michael Burnham the captain from the beginning, instead of like fucking around for 2 seasons. But all in all, I didn't mind the cast. I think the cast were all doing a good job, especially Doug Jones. I liked the actress. Didn't like the character so much of Michael Burnham, but I definitely liked the actress. Michelle Yeoh did a good job. So they had interesting characters, but it was very, very, very focused on Michael Burnham rather than being an ensemble show. And I don't know how much of an influence this particular writer had on, Kalinda Vazquez had on all of that. What I will say about her is I do like Fear the Walking Dead, so I think that's a really good show. I think Marvel Runaways is a good show. So she's got some good credit. So hopefully, the worst aspects of Star Trek Discovery were not, on her, and she can actually do a reboot that's worthy. But my issue really with this reboot is, again, why go back to the original Enterprise? I know they've been the ones that have been in the movies so far, but there were movies of Star Trek, Next Generation. So why not reboot that? I think that would be cool with a young Captain Picard. You could have you'd have Data, a young Data again. I always used to love LeVar Burton. Give him more of a role as Geordi LaForge. There were cool characters on Star Trek Next Generation. You could reboot that in Abraham's universe with a new team behind. Let Abraham just produce and get some directors and whatever to take on that role, and then even branch off. I would love my heart literally. If they would do a Star Trek Voyager movie, the brand new cast, as much as I love you, Kate Mulgrew. I love Kate Mulgrew. She's my second favorite captain. She was awesome to me. She was such a badass, and she was feminine, but she was like a badass fucking, she was great, man. She was like Ripley from Alien with Captain Picard, with a little bit of Captain Picard and a little bit of even a little bit of the bravado of William Shatner, all mixed into one. So I loved Voyager. I don't know what people's problem what it was with Star Trek Voyager amongst the Star Trek community. They started saying it was too entertaining or something like that. It wasn't, really into the crux of the sci-fi concepts. But to me, exploring the sci-fi element, to me, I have to say, Next Generation, to me, sorry guys, you're gonna hate me on Star Trek, I thought it was pretty fucking boring. I really did. I felt it was too labored and too slow, and it just wasn't dynamic enough, for me. And I don't think perhaps the technology had caught up. I know it was a big show and it was much more popular than DS9 and Voyager, but I just don't think the technology had really caught up with what it was trying to do. And Star Trek DS9, for me, I thought that was hip. I thought that was cool. I thought that was a new concept, and I loved the war going on in that universe and how he was dealing with that. Cisco was an absolute badass. Avery Brooks was cool to watch as him. He was kind of like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, like all in one, in like a Starfleet captain. And they had really cool. I like Quark, obviously. I'm not going to say that. There's a thing I usually say about him, but it might be taken the wrong way, even though it's meant with a great deal of affection. But he was like the greedy, mercantile, little slivery, slimy wheeler dealer in the Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and he was great. and I like the mythology of Dax in Star Trek Deep Space Nine as well. So I thought there was just a lot to Star Trek that a Deep Space Nine worthy of exploring. Again, that would be a great little film series. And then, do Star Trek Voyager. And I'm not saying skip Star Trek Next Generation. I'm saying do Star Trek Next Generation, then DS9, and then Voyager. And, one of the upsides sorry, I have to do one more shout out to the Star Trek Voyager crew. Fucking Picard, Robert Picardo as the Doctor, Tim Russ as Tuvok. I loved Jennifer Leanne as Kez. Unfortunately, I was not a big fan of the Borg character, Seven of Nine, who just completely took over the show, and I thought the show suffered from it because every episode was about her. Before, it was much more of an ensemble where each episode followed a different character, and it was fun. You'd rotate, and finally your character would come around. And that was the good thing about Voyager before Jerry Ryan kind of took over and started sleeping with one of the writers, was that the show was much, much more eclectic than any other show of Star Trek. No matter what character you liked, you would get your episode, and I think the DS9, I think that's why that was a little bit more exciting as well. Next Generation kind of started that, but really Next Generation was about Picard and Data, right? There were episodes following other people every once in a while, but if you were to pick a random episode of the first season, like you just pick out of a hat of the first few seasons of Star Trek Next Generation, I think you're almost 50% to 75% likely to pick an episode that is about Picard or Data. Whereas with Voyager, if you were to pick that from the first 4 seasons, you could end up with any character. Literally any character. It could Kez, could be Neelix, it could be Harry Kim, it could have been any character whatsoever. And I think you could say a similar thing of DS9, and that's what I think made those shows for me so much more dynamic. And I think they'd make really good film universes. And especially if you want to go the MCU route and kind of connect these shows. I think you could do a thing where, the Next Generation cast are actually looking for Voyager, which is, you find out the origin of how Voyager got lost. Captain Janeway fighting the Maquis, so she's fighting Chakotay in the first episode. Like, dude, you could do a epic film of how they get lost, the first thing of how Voyager get lost, and then have the Next Generation crew after them, and DS9 fighting their war with who were they fighting against again? They were fighting against a cool enemy as well. So that's my kind of just rant on this. I just wanted to, say my piece on just how I feel they could really fix the Star Trek universe. I hope they do. I hope this video has not been too. I hope the voice and sound has been good. But that's just my thoughts on it. I hope it all kind of works out for her. That's me. I'm the man. Please, if you want some more, nerdy talk about different franchises, Marvel, DC, X-Men, all of those kind of things, I love. Talk a lot about cancel culture on this as well channel. So if you're interested in any of those topics, please subscribe for more videos, and I will see you on the flip side. Love you 3000. Give me a high five, smash the like button, please. to help the video. Thanks so much. Bye.